And week 1 in my lounge, it was me and 10 of my non-Christian friends, which was great. And then week 2, it was me, Joss, and we had 17 in my front room. At the end of the Alpha, each week we'd average around 20, 25, but about 90 people came in total, all just friends of friends. What's sprung out of this is that other people have gone, well, I can do Alpha in my front room, let's do it. 74% of students said that they would go to church if a friend would invite them.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Students are desiring to be in family.
Welcome, everybody. This is Simon Gilbert with Inspired. Great to be back for another fantastic week. What I love is the range of stories we get on this. And Inspired, if you're new to us, is all about amidst the bombardment, the relentless bombardment of negativity and bad news that we get fed that just induces anxiety and depression and fear. We want to counteract that by meeting a whole load of my mates from different walks of life that have seen God at work, seen how faith has changed things, and they're all living life in its fullness, which doesn't mean it's an easy life, but it does mean it's a full life. And we've got with us actually our youngest ever guest on Inspired. It is Rob Colwell. Welcome, Rob.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to share some stories and some encouragement. It'd be great.
It's going to be brilliant. So Rob is at my old university, Loughborough. And we met several months ago. I was preaching at my old church, Open Heaven, with Richard Ness Wilson, and he's absolutely on fire. And then a few months ago, we also came across each other at J. John's Evangelist Conference at the beginning of the year and had a great time there. And I love it. And you know, in general on Inspired, we've had older people simply because it's about life story. And often you have to have packed in a few decades to have lots of stories. But Rob's only 21. He's got so many brilliant stories. He's got fantastic heritage. Let's hear a bit about that, Rob, because, the Rees lineage. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's really exciting hearing stories growing up of what my granddads and great-grandfathers have done has set a real foundation. So my great-grandfather, the Rees lineage, is called Tom Rees. And basically, he just absolutely loved prayer. And he believed that he could pray revival into existence. And so post-war time, he decided that he was going to run rallies, which actually was against the time. People thought that it was rallies of, where you get a couple of thousand people in a big auditorium were over. But he decided that that wasn't the case. And so he hired out the Royal Albert Hall for 52 nights and filled it for 52 nights.
In a row?
Yeah, and that was part of the post-war revival, which is so exciting. And Billy Graham came over to the UK with him, and the Billy Graham talks will go down in history as some of the most influential talks that happened in the UK for Christianity. So, I feel honoured to be part. It's for him to be my great-grandfather. It's pretty cool. And I like to think that baton's been passed on.
Yeah. Now, even before you were born, well, it might not have happened. Go on. What was the story there? Well,
yeah. So my mum and dad were workers in Istanbul. They were teaching English as a foreign language, but also science. And I was going to be born as a missionary kid. And my mum went for a routine scan to see how I was getting on. And the doctors all looked very worried. I was only a month away from being born. And what they had discovered is that half of my mother's womb was actually black on the screen, that there was a bleed in my mother's womb. And there was like a membrane almost created. So half of my mother's womb was healthy, half was I would drown if I was in that part of the womb. And the doctor said, if he stays on that side, he will live. And if he floats over to that side, then he will drown. So my mum and dad prayed, and they got everyone they knew to pray. Well, you can tell the outcome of the story. I'm here talking to you today because I stayed on that side of my mother's womb and was born healthy. And it was an absolute miracle. And so being told that story as a kid, I just always knew I had this deep thing inside my bones from a young age, because I was like, I'm loved by God. He saved me. He is my savior. He literally saved me in the womb. So it was such a blessing, but a scary thing for my mum and dad to go through before I was even born.
Yeah. So you were raised in Turkey, were you?
Yeah, so I lived in Turkey until I was about 3.5, nearly 4. So I went to preschool in Turkey. I was speaking Turkish to all the other Turkish kids, which was quite fun. So yeah, and then came back to the UK after that.
So a mixture of a missionary and pastor's kid. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, such blessings, such amazing times. I mean, I would not change it for the world. Ages 1 to 10, I think I had the most blessed upbringing you could ever imagine. All the crazy stuff of church going on and being part of that. I'm the oldest son of 3 boys as well. So I just absolutely loved it. And getting alongside other young people when I was a kid was great. And so much so that my dad just gave me the keys to the youth at the church. And he said, "Do you know what, Rob? You can invite whoever you want. You can have the youth stuff." And so he just said, just let me run with it. So I just invited all my friends. Each week would come over. And yeah, it was such a blessing. It was such an amazing time. It was full of joy. But a crazy story from being a pastor's kid is one night I went to Boys Brigade. If you know Boys Brigade, great organisation to be part of. And I was out there. And what I didn't know is when I was away, someone from my dad's church had been called and said, "There's a homeless man sleeping on the front door of the church. You know, what are we going to do?" So mum and dad went and picked him up. And they took him in and they gave him my mum and dad's bedroom. They said, "Look, you can have the bed," and, gave him some food, whatever. Forgot to tell me this. So when I walk in from Boys Brigade about 10:30, go into my mum and dad's room, say goodnight, there's this huge Bulgarian man sitting in the bed. I'm like, "Hello, what's going on?" I thought I was in a dream before I walked into a different house. Anyway, walk into the lounge and mum and dad said, explained to me the story. And that was me and my brothers know that as the winter of Goran, who stayed for the Christmas holidays with us. But just things like that happen regularly, which was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. That says so much about your parents. I mean, we tried, even in lockdown, we had a guy up the street who just slept on the common, and we invited him in during lockdown, and he was very broken and 37 years of drug addiction and brain addle, spoke very loudly, but we had him in for meals and showers, and he used to leave the place in a mess, and it was so uncomfortable engaging that level. But your parents, that was how they rolled, was it, in general?
Yeah, crazy stuff like that happen all the time, which I think taught me a lot about hospitality. And as you said, like when you offer hospitality, you give all of it. You can't just say, "Oh, you can only have this part." Generosity sometimes comes with people abusing that generosity. And so that definitely happened to my parents often, but that's okay. That's what it's all about. That's the heart of Jesus, to love those who need that at that time.
So key moments as you're growing up?
I think a key moment for me was my mum sent me to a youth group that was failing, as your mum would do. It was right next to my school, and I thought it'd be a good idea to invite my classmates to this event, even though it was pretty, it wasn't spectacular. It was a talk, and then played a bit of table tennis with a few Haribos. So that was about it. And I decided to invite them, and they came, and then more came, and then they invited their friends, and this group that had 10 people in it started to be 200 strong within a year.
This is South London.
Yeah, this is in South East London, in Bromley. And what I didn't know at the time, my mum and dad had already started praying for the gift of evangelism in my life from that point. Because I was just a kid. I was enjoying seeing my friends come and hear stories about Jesus. I didn't know what the word evangelism was, but they saw something in me and started to pray it into fruition. So that's a story which I, in hindsight, think of as a key moment.
Was it all plain sailing?
Well, it wasn't all plain sailing. I was thinking about it, and I think many people, when they say their testimony and they say, "I'm from a Christian home," they feel ashamed of saying that they're from a Christian home. But I was reading recently of Elisha and Elijah, and when Elijah gives over the double portion to Elisha, and how wonderful and awesome that is, that that blessing can be passed on. Obviously, it's your own personal decision, but just to encourage anyone that's got a testimony where it involves being in a Christian family, that's awesome. That's amazing. Something to cherish. But I went away, and I think it was a few things combined together. It was, one is my pops passed away, and I absolutely loved him with a passion. And I didn't really know how to deal with that grief. I think secondly, I was the oldest son of the pastor. I knew all the Bible stories, and actually, I think I became a bit of a Pharisee, if I'm honest. And I was very prideful about how much I knew. It was all in my brain, but it wasn't really in my heart. And so when I went to secondary school, and I went to an all-boys school, when I was in the rugby team and the football team, became a bit of a jock, bit of a bully at times as well. It almost became that I had a double life. On Monday to Friday, I was this boisterous potty mouth who would, join in with the conversations where people would talk about women in inappropriate ways. But then on the weekend, wouldn't dream of saying anything awful at home, never. And would be running youth clubs and doing lots of stuff in church. And so what happened was this shame built up in me, because I knew that the way I was living at school was not how I wanted to live, but I felt like I couldn't go and bring that out into the light because I knew it was so wrong, which then led to something which is sad for me, which is really sad. And it happens so much to my generation and this new generation, is that we label ourselves with things. We see in media depression rates up and anxiety rates up. And I labeled myself as a depressed, anxious person. I'm the least anxious person. If you meet me today, that does not exist in my life. But I labeled myself these things. And actually I went to self-medicate myself. Now, some people go to alcohol or some people go to drugs, and that wasn't the case for me. The case for me was into self-harm. And yes, it was really tricky, because it was a way for me, I felt at the time, to punish myself, basically, which in hindsight is utterly crazy. But in the moment, it felt like it's the only thing I could do. And what was glorious is that Jesus was pursuing me. He was pursuing me the whole time. And there's a little scripture in I think it's First Kings. I could be wrong, but it's about David and his son, and he says that it says that doesn't God pursue the person who's been banished? Doesn't God go after them? And in hindsight, that's what he was doing for me. And so this summer, I was prayerful, and I talked to friends, and I shared. I didn't go through it alone. And that was a big step, and I got help to have some counselling, and I got set free from self-harm, and that was awesome. And that summer, I decided to get baptized when I was 16, and it was a joyous day. And the night I got baptized, I had this oil. And I was like, and I had these scars on my arms from what I used to do. And I anointed my arm and said, Lord, that's no longer my identity. Take away my scars. And I prayed it in faith. And my life verse is Matthew 21, verse 22, which is, if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Amen. Now, it's my life verse because I love it, and also because I'm dyslexic and I couldn't remember any other verses. So It's the only verse I could remember. And so I was like, yes, and I'm praying this into fruition. Next morning, I woke up and they were still there. And it was difficult. It was really hard. Fast forward a few months, and I've just got out the shower and dry myself off, and I lose my mind. I look in the mirror and they're gone.
Wow.
The scars are gone, and I'm looking. I go to sleep. I'm like, my brain's playing tricks on me. I wake up the next day, look again, they're gone. And I was just like, wow, the God of miracles, and He's done one to me. That's crazy,
Wonderful,
amazing,
wonderful. So you're back on track, age 16, are you?
Yeah, around age 16. But I would love to tell you at age 16, it all went smooth sailing from there. And there was a lot of things that I still needed to deal with. And I was living this life of sin at school, and that needed to be addressed. And I actually moved school for sixth form, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to move. I moved to a school called Eltham College, and it's actually the school that Eric Liddell went to.
Yeah, when you say that, I'm thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a school for the sons and daughters of Christian missionaries. How awesome is that?
And as we heard on J. John's conference, 2024 is the 100th anniversary of the Olympics, in which he, got his gold medal, and that was also in Paris, wasn't it? 100 years ago, and the Paris Olympics are coming up, and so we're going to use that as an evangelistic opportunity. J. John said he's going to produce 1 million of these, of the story of that, which is so incredibly inspiring. You're at his college, famous alumni.
Exactly, so exciting. And the school's actually celebrating this 100 year, and they're doing loads of events, which is amazing, really encouraging. But in the library, the chaplain looked at me and said, "Look, Rob, do you read the Bible? You call yourself Christian." I'm thinking, I'm dyslexic that doesn't like to read. I don't read the Bible, no. I read it on a, Bible study or whatever, but I don't read it for myself. And he called me out and he said he would read it with me. And it was the first time I actually opened the scriptures properly. And my mind just got absolutely boom, just got absolutely blown. And I was seeing things, and all the head knowledge was going into my heart, and I was becoming soft, and, they were good days. It was a very exciting time. But a key moment where I think, it's like when you put a seal on a letter, that's the moment that you bang, it's done, it's finished. Actually, I was at a party with my old school friends, the school that I went to before. I was with my mate, non-Christian friend, and I think I'd had a few beers at this point, and so had he. We were standing there, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Rob, so you believe that Jesus, and God, the Trinity, made the whole universe?" And I'm like, "Yeah, right, yeah." And he goes, "So, but then you also believe that, like, he knows your name?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, obviously I've been told he knows my name for, years. But this conversation, something happened where, again, it went from head to heart. And he carried on speaking. He was like, "Rob, so I've heard that God knows, like, how many hairs are on your head." And I was like, "Yeah, he does." Like, wow. I was like, "Mate, and he knows how many are on your head." And basically we both start weeping in the middle of this party because we're having this conversation, and I'm realizing the things that I've learned my whole childhood are true. And it's come through the mouthpiece of my friend who doesn't even know Jesus. It was awesome. It was an amazing moment and a real influential moment in my journey of being back where I'm supposed to be with the Lord.
So, that you had that sort of evangelist gift identified way back when you took, 10 to 200 of the youth group. And obviously that's how I see you now. You're fantastic at communicating Jesus and being winsome one-on-one. You're running, we'll come to it, this Alpha course with your rugby mates, and with my best buddy in Bath here, Matt Wielden's son Joss, shout out to them. But so you've got this gift, you're winsome, you're passionate, and it just flows out of you, doesn't it? But so 16, 17, you're beginning to see that gift in operation?
Yeah, beginning to see it, and speaking with people about Jesus and getting alongside them, which is awesome. And the Alpha course has been huge. I think I've had a hand in running maybe 5 Alpha courses now. And each one has produced fruit, which is awesome. But yeah, that started in my final year of sixth form. But the one Alpha story, which I would love to tell you guys about, which was just utterly amazing, is at university. And my church, Open Heaven, they do this thing called Big Alpha. So each year in January, they get the whole church and everyone brings their friends, and there's a big buzz in the room. But they were like, "Rob, we'd love you to run a table, invite your friends. It's on a Monday at 8:00. And I was like, goodness me, I've got rugby training at Monday at 8:00. And all the friends I want to bring are going to be at training, so I can't do it. So I was like, "Look, can I just do my table on a Tuesday at my house, and we'll do the same, videos, but just my table at mine?" And they said yes. And so I got inviting. And week 1 in my lounge, it was me and 10 of my non-Christian friends, which was great. And then week 2, I got Joss, because I was like, I'm out. The ratio is a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And so week 2, it was me, Joss, and we had 17 in my front room, which
Rugby
was
boys.
a real squeeze. So I went to the church and I said, look, we've got 18 including Joss, at our meeting. Can we use one of the rooms at the church? And they're like, yeah, use one of the rooms at the church. Great, of course. And so the next week we had 25. And so I was like, wow, we got a whole load of ladies come in. Me and Joss, the 2 lads, obviously it's fine, we'll chat to them, but let's get another lady in. So I got my friend Kirsty, who doesn't come from a Christian home, and she's got an awesome story. So I was like, Kirsty, come and help us. And she came, and she really ministered to people. It was awesome. At the end of the Alpha, each week we'd average around 20, 25, but about 90 people came in total, all just friends of friends. And we gave out Bibles, and actually 2 lads who went on the Alpha course are getting baptized in the next month, I believe. So it was just so awesome. And I think what's sprung out of this is that other people have gone, all right, well, I can do Alpha in my front room. Let's do it. And so now in Loughborough, there's, I think, 4 or 5 Alphas going on from Open Heaven students where they've just gone, there's the architects. I want them to come. I'm going to cook them dinner and we'll watch Alpha and we'll talk about Jesus. So that's been so amazing to see that it's sort of like sprung out into all different places and spaces across campus. It's been great.
Wonderful. And, you are an evangelist, but, and people get scared or don't really understand the role of the evangelist. But actually, Ephesians 4 talks about the fact that our job is to equip God's people to do it. So it's multiplying yourself out, and you've modeled it to other people, and other people have caught the vision and running with it. That's absolutely fantastic. We jumped a bit chronologically, which is totally fine. We're just going back a bit then. So you've finished school. I picture you doing quite a lot of travel and doing stuff on the road. Do you want to go into that?
So yeah, I did 2 years of university and then decided to take a year off to go on back to Turkey, back to Istanbul from where I was from. And my main focus for going was to just get alongside people. So I was a head coach of a football team. I was a head coach of a rugby team. And so I just got to enjoy spending time with all of these lads, which was so amazing. And I think when my mum and dad were there back in when I was a child, their main sort of mission field was the people the people that lived in the flat above, and the baker and the car mechanic, and mum and dad are still in contact with those people 20 years on. And so that's sort of the model I went into it as. I was going to live amongst the people, all right, and I'll be praying for them and I'll be interacting with them. And so an amazing story. This is my favorite story. So one day I went down to the market and I was looking for a chicken because they do these lovely whole roast chickens, and the chicken shop was closed. So I'm walking along and there's a fishmonger's. And so I, look around, and one of the guys invites me in. So I walk in. Turkish hospitality is stunning, by the way. If you've never been to Turkey, and it's amazing, and drinks and Turkish tea is beautiful. And so they give me tea. I sit down, and I just take in my surroundings and realise that I'm off the street. All right, I'm in a secluded little corner. There's fish blood going along the floor. There's like 5 or 6 men with huge machetes, like chopping off fish heads, and my very broken Turkish. And I just felt very unsafe in that moment. And I'm talking to the guy, talking about Turkish rugby, which doesn't really exist, to be honest, and about where I was born. I have a Turkish name, Emre. I was telling him about that, and he got a bit excited. And then the call to prayer went off, and he was like, "Oh, we're going to prayers. Do you want to come?" I was like, "No." He was like, "What? You're not a Muslim?" And I was like, "I'm not a Muslim, no." He's like, "So what are you? Are you a Jew? Are you a Hindu? Are you a Buddhist? Are you a Protestant? Are you a Catholic?" Oh, in that moment, I absolutely pooed myself, honestly, because he's holding a machete, and I've heard stories of persecution. I was like, this might be the day that I go to see the Lord. And I wish in that moment I triumphantly had said, I am a follower of Jesus and this is the gospel. Actually, I didn't do that. I very cowardly said, I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus. To which he looked at me in pity he took my tea back and ushered me out of the shop. Now, as I'm walking out of the shop, something came over me. The Holy Spirit came over me. And this old man was walking past the shop, just sort of looking at the fish, but not really. And I don't know why, but I decided that I would sell him the fish. So I became a salesman. I was like, oh, lovely man, come over here. The beautiful fish caught today. We'll do a special deal. Come in. And so I sold him, and he bought 2 fish. So I bring the man in with the fish, and all of the guys are looking at me like, who is this white Christian, right, who's just sold us, 2, big fish, And from that point on, they absolutely loved me. Mm-hmm. I think that, every time I'd walk past the fishmongers, they'd get me in for tea. They'd chop up a big salmon and cook me the salmon. And they wouldn't let me pay. And then tea, and they were talking about families and all of this stuff. And I'd bring them English tea to try. They hated it. I brought them cherries and they liked that more. And I just did life with these guys. And one day, I was there when the earthquake happened. Mm-hmm. Down in the southeast of Turkey. And the Turkish churches together had gone down 2 days after the earthquake just to feed people, give people water. And it was beautiful. And I had decided that I was going to go down too, a few months after the earthquake, but I was going to go down. And so I was talking to my fisherman friends, and they were asking what I was going to do this next week. And I said, I'm going to the earthquake zone with the church together, and we're going to go feed the people that don't have any food. And they all looked at me and went, wow, what am I doing? There's a word in Turkish called yabancı, which basically means like foreigner, like not a nice word. And they were like, this foreigner is going to help my people, my Muslim brothers. What am I doing? I'm not doing anything. And I said, well, yeah, the church are going down because we're going to love these people in this situation. And we want to serve them. My God he's a servant God. He's servant hearted, and I want to be like him. And they were absolutely shocked and shocked to the heart. So I went off, and we carried on this friendship. And I do definitely believe those seeds have been planted in their hearts, that they're not going to be so aggressive towards the gospel anymore, just from this experience.
Did you then head off to Asia?
Yeah, so just as I was about to go, my visa had a big problem, and so I got booted out. And so I decided it would be a fun idea to go to Vietnam to visit my friend Ben, who is a missionary out there, and he's an awesome man. He's just so cool. Simon, he's like, imagine you, but you went to Vietnam instead. That's Ben. You'd be great friends. And so I went out to Ben, and Ben works with disabled people and lots of orphanages out in Vietnam. And we'd be on the motorbikes in, Southeast Asia. It was a complete shock to the system. I was so scared every time I got on the motorbike. I would just be praying that I survived the day. My friend Ben, so after being there for a couple of weeks, he said, oh, Rob, I know you had to leave Turkey promptly. Well, I'm actually going to kick you out of Vietnam as well, because my in-laws are coming and they're staying in the room that you're staying in. So I'm shipping you off to Jackie Pullinger to stay at the New Boy House in Hong Kong for a month. I hope you're all right with that. You have no choice. Off you go. So I went to Hong Kong and I served at Jackie Pullinger's place, and it was awesome. There was lots of key moments, but one key moment in particular stood out. There was this man called Asoy, and Asoy was in his 70s, and he'd been a previous drug addict, but these days he actually had dementia, as well as his brain being deteriorating from his previous drug use. And back in the day, Asoy was a carpenter, and he built all the beds in this place, and it was awesome. And he used to speak a bit of English too, but when I met him, he was just blubbering, couldn't put any words together. And I just finished a duty, and it was the middle of the night, and I was walking past Asoy's bed, and I was just like, do you know what? I'm just going to pray for Asoy in English. Like, I'm just going to pray over him. So I prayed for maybe about a minute and a half, and I see his one eye open, look at me, and he goes, Amen. I'm like, pardon? Sorry, Asoy? He opens his eyes and he looks at me and he goes, Amen. And I just wrecked me, like just complete, utter, for the next day, I was just in utter admiration of the Lord, because it was like this man who his mind has been gone for many years, understood the words I was saying in not his own language and confirmed them with an amen, which was just awesome. So after being in Southeast Asia for a little bit of time, I had the opportunity to go back to Turkey for 3 months, and I finally got to Antakya, to the earthquake zone. And I didn't know if you knew this, but Antakya is actually modern day Antioch, where they were first called Christians. And when I was there, I was just absolutely blown away by the geography. So I do geography and sports science at university. And I'll tell you a bit about the geography. So the town is like a big valley, and on either side of the town is 2 big mountain ranges. Okay. And the church of Antioch is built into the rock. It's at the side of the town. It's built into the rock. So literally the back of the church is just the rock face. And then there's just 2 walls that come out, and that's it. And obviously the devastation across the city was awful. But one of the only buildings that has stayed standing was the church that had been built in Antioch, 1,900 years ago. And I just thought that was a real prophetic picture that the church will still stand no matter how shaky the situation is. So that was an honour to serve down there. It was difficult. It was very hard, but an absolute honour.
So in Turkey, you had plenty of encounters with Muslims, obviously, because it's a 99.8% Muslim country. Share some of those. Yeah,
so one evening in Antioch, I was on night duty. So I was, guarding the water supply. And this man, it's like 2:00 in the morning. This man sort of wanders along the road, and I see him, and I'm like, well, what's he? Who's this man? Anyway, he comes and he sits by the fire with us for most of the evening, and we have conversation. It turns out he was an imam from Palestine, and we got chatting, and it was actually a very nice, warm conversation. But at one point, he was telling me about how Islam is the most peaceful religion. He was telling me, and I was like, I'm not too sure. I gave him my hands. I gave him my arms, and he was holding my hands, and he was like, what are you doing? Why are you giving me your hands? And I said, well, you need to chop them off. And he looked at me like, what are you on about? And I said, well, in the Quran, it says you have to chop off the hands of the infidel. And it also says that a Christian is an infidel. And so I said, if you're going to, if it's a peaceful religion and you're going to honor your book, you have to do one of them. So which one is it going to be? So I've still got both of my hands, which is very nice. And actually, I know that sounds pretty aggressive from me, but it was a moment where I felt like I really needed to make a statement to this man. And after we talked about that, we talked about loads of other stuff. But as he left, he told me, I really thank you for this conversation, and I'm going to think about what I believe. So I don't know what's happened to that man. I mean, other conversations that I had in Turkish baths. If you know Turkish baths, it's great. You get lovely massage and sauna and steam room and whatever. I've actually got a tattoo of a cross on my ankle, which is slightly interesting when you're getting a massage right next to the mosque. And there was one man who saw my cross, and he came up to me, and he gave me. He as he left, he put his number under my changing room, and I was thinking, okay, this could be a bit weird. But anyway, I dropped him a message and said, it was nice to meet you. Would you like to go for a coffee? So we went for a coffee, and we had a chat basically through Google Translate, because my Turkish is not good enough to talk about apologetics through the phone. But we talked through the phone, and Google Translate, actually, I just want to encourage anyone that's thinking of going on a trip abroad that actually language obviously is very important, and learn the language. However, you can get by, and that shouldn't limit you. If you want to go. Even if you don't speak to anyone, but you're just praying in that place for that nation, you're praying in that place and space. You are, our battles against powers and principalities. If you're battling those in those spaces, that's something that's really important. So a little caveat there. But anyway, talking to this man through Google Translate, he starts speaking to me and saying all of these arguments. And then, he starts telling me how awesome Muhammad is. And I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. And we went on, and he was saying about how they like Mary and Jesus. And I said, that's very interesting. You said that you like Mary, because doesn't it say that women are evil, but Mary actually wasn't? And he was like, yeah, before Muhammad, like all women were evil. And I was like, okay, so what about Muhammad's mum? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, so the only lady before Muhammad that was in heaven, or in their version of heaven, is Mary. And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, so surely Mary, who birthed Jesus, that baby boy's got to be awesome, hasn't he? And he was like, yeah, that's true. And I was like, so surely if someone was born from someone who was evil, are they not going to have some of that on them? Are they, is that not going to be part of it? And he was like, yeah, that's right. We put him in a bit of a hole. And he invited me to go and speak to his imam. We didn't speak very long, just a bit of a hello because we had to leave. But I left him and I messaged him and he didn't reply. And it was a bit of a sad moment. And actually I was praying, and I literally just thought about him. I was in a coffee shop. And I was just praying for this particular guy. And I was walking back and was feeling a bit disheartened. And lo and behold, the man's walking past me. What are the chances in the city of Istanbul? Like 20 million people in this city. And I see him and we have a big hug, and he's like, oh, like, Rob, like, we'll go for a coffee again. And like, I really enjoyed talking with you. You've really challenged me and made me think. And I've been talking to my friends about it too. And it was really awesome. So we met for coffee again. Now, he hasn't given his life to the Lord, but it was really encouraging that he didn't just dismiss me. He listened, and we had a conversation. And actually, some of the things that he asked me, I was like, okay, I don't know about that, but I'm going to go away and research it, and we'll come back to you. He's like, wow, if I said a question to my imam that he didn't understand, he would say that I'm dishonoring God by asking a difficult question. He would say, how dare I sort of challenge Allah? And I was like, no, I don't know all the answers, and even if it was a minister or a priest who was here, they wouldn't know all the answers, but it's about doing life together. We're going to work it through. We've got the word of God here. And the answer, I'm sure, these questions about theology we will find in this book. So just give me a few days and I'll do some research and we'll get back to you. And he was like, wow, okay, cool, yeah. It was great. So many more interactions like that happened while I was out in Turkey.
Hey folks, most of you know that this comes out on the auspices of Great Lakes Outreach working in Burundi. I love the impact in our work, literally in the lives of hundreds of thousands of people through getting behind incredible local leaders involved in all sorts of work out in Burundi. Listen, I've got some great news, and that is that we've got an incredibly generous friend of mine who has put in £50,000 for matched funding of monthly giving over the coming year. So if any of you were loving the podcast and want to be involved in our work, if you, for example, chose to give £10 a month for the coming year, that £10 is literally double, becomes £20. If you had more money, we're giving 100, that become 200, whatever, including if you're already giving monthly, and whatever you increase that by, that will be matched for the coming year. What an opportunity. I'd love it if you want to consider that, and you could go to greatlakesoutreach.org/inspired, and you could make that pledge there. Oh, be awesome. greatlakesoutreach.org/inspired if you want to be involved in that. And thank you so much for your support. Now let's get back to the podcast. And then you ended up coming back to university, and that was difficult, was it?
Yeah, coming back to England was a bit of a shock, coming from an earthquake zone and back into, comfortability and all of these sort of things. And I mean, I was only away for a year, but Simon, you must have experienced much similar coming back from Burundi, I'm sure. And I had made a decision that I didn't want it to be a year where I'd gone and done crazy things and come back to the UK and never see any crazy things happen again. And so we decided, me and a friend, that we would start a small group, which is called the Heart of Mission, and that we'd have soft hearts and hard feet, and that we would go out every other week and we do something for the community. We go and do some mission. And so one week we went onto the roundabout near where campus is, and we set up a banner that says "Heaven is here," and we worshipped for a good hour or two. And cars went past, some with thumbs up, some with different finger up. And yeah, that was awesome. And then we worshipped in an alleyway, which is notorious for where drug deals happen. And one week we went to Lidl and we bought loads of food, and then we walked around the student triangle. We knocked on doors that we felt the Lord was telling us to go to and gave food. And actually a few people have started to come to Alpha since then and have come to the Lord from that evening.
Brilliant.
And so it's just been a real blessing. And what's really exciting is that when God puts something in you, it can be used in the context of Vietnam in the back streets, but it can also be used in the context of Loughborough. How awesome that is, that it's the same God. He is everywhere. He's not just in the UK. He's not just in Vietnam. He is the God of the whole universe. And it's just absolutely awesome. And to tell you a story of a faith-raising story, two which happened in the same week. We went into the care home down the road from Open Heaven Church and to sing some carols. And we were singing, and at the end we were just chatting to the residents. And there's this guy, and he was like, I went to church back in the day. I'd love to come to church. You guys are great. Can I come with you on Sunday? And I was like, mate, of course, come. And he's come, and he absolutely loves it. And he's been brought back into family, and he's been doing Alpha. And so that's been awesome, just from going to sing some carols in the care home. And then in the same week, I was in the geography building, of all places. And my friend Piers, he says, "Oh, Rob, tell me about when you spent some time in Hong Kong." So I start talking about Hong Kong. And this girl next to me, she goes, "Oh, I'm from Hong Kong." I was like, "Oh, hello, nei ho, o sek siu siu cheng man." That means, hello, I don't speak Chinese. And then she started speaking Chinese at me. Anyway, so we chatted, and it was awesome. And it turned out that when she was away the previous year, a colleague had shared with her a bit about the gospel and had brought her to church events. And she had really loved it, and she felt this is where she needed to be. But when she finished that role and came back to university, she didn't have it anymore. She felt a bit lost. And as we were talking, I found this out. And it was just a real honor. And I said, "Look, have you heard of the Alpha course?" And she said, "No, go on. What is it?" So she gave it a Google, had a little look, was like, "Oh, that sounds really cool. I think that would be something that I'd really like to go to." I was like, "Well, it's just your luck, because I'm running one with my mate Joss at his place tonight in an hour. And guess what? We've been planning to have a Chinese food night. And so tonight we're having Chinese food. Do you want to come?" She was like, "I'm there." I was like, "Great." And I was like, "It is English Chinese, so you will be disappointed. So please don't kill me." Anyway, she came and she loved it. And the next week she brought her mate. And I was like, "Wow, this is so cool." And then we invited her to church on Sunday. And she responded to the salvation prayer. And we brought her a Bible, and she's not been able to put it down for the exam season. She's like, "Rob, you've ruined my grades because I can't stop reading Matthew, and now I've read John, and now I've read Genesis, and now I've read Acts." And it's like, "Jax, you've only had it for 3 weeks. How have you read all of those books? You're putting us all to shame." And it's just awesome. It's just awesome how, those divine appointments where God puts you just right in the perfect place to meet someone, to encounter them, and for them to come to know him. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, we just got to seize the opportunity, haven't we? I mean, I got, a few months ago, I got a random WhatsApp message saying, "Your shift is up, where are you?" whatever. And it was from Lisa, I think she was in Chengdu in China. So somehow she had mistaken me for one of her staff. And anyway, it was so random, but I got into a faith discussion with her, and all the way she just responded to coming to Jesus. And it was so nuts, but I was like, what have I got to lose? It's a cross-wire communication, and it was such a joy to lead her to the Lord and then investigate hooking her in with the local church there, which is obviously more problematic in China these days because persecution is increasing, isn't it? Yeah. So she's still going strong, this girl? Yeah,
she is. I'm hoping that she'll be getting baptized soon, which is great. I'm so excited. And she's she's an evangelist at heart already. She's been inviting friends to come along. She's been praying for her mum. Awesome. There's big things for her in the kingdom, I'm sure. Yeah, another quick story, a similar thing. Well, not even a similar thing. I was just minding my own business, and I get a message like your story, Simon. I get a message, and it's a bloke, and he goes, "Hey Rob, you don't know me, but I've heard about you, and I heard that you're a bit of a rugby lad, but also a Christian, and I've heard that you do crazy things. So can we meet for a pint?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, all right, we'll meet for a pint." So I met the guy, and he sat down to me and he said, "Oh yeah, so there's these Christians I was talking to, and I'm really interested in Christianity, but they said that it wasn't really for me because I've got a girlfriend and I've been doing stuff with her, and I like to swear all the time, and I like I like to have a pint." And he's saying all of this lifestyle, and these Christians actually had bad-mouthed me. They pulled me through the dirt, and I'm so thankful that they did, because they were like, "Oh, we'll send him to Rob. We'll send him to Rob because he's that sort of Christian," which isn't the case. But I met with this guy, and he just poured out his heart to me, and I said, "Look, have you heard that you can have a relationship with Jesus?" And he was like, "No, what's that? What's a relationship with Jesus?" And I was like, "Oh, mate, he loves you. He wants you to spend time with him. His word is alive and active. When you read it, he'll show you things. You can meet him today. Do you want to meet him?" He was like, "Yeah, I want to meet him." And so yeah, he came to the Lord, and came to a Christian festival that I go to called Revive, and made some beautiful friendships there. And yeah, that was such an amazing story. But I love how the Lord used something which was meant to slander as actually a salvation story. What an awesome story. And I went through a process of forgiving this individual who had slandered me. But it wasn't even, I forgave him, but I said thank you, and I'm not sure he liked that too much, but oh well, it's all for the glory of God.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing like it. I am where I am. I'm 50 years old now, so that's being on the same campus that you're now on. That's 30 odd years ago. But as you're talking, I'm thinking back to this guy, also called Simon. At the end of that first lecture, it's Thursday morning, 9 a.m. At the end, he says, "Do you want to come back with me for a coffee?" And it turns out the coffee was a spliff. He'd invited me back because I had the druggy look. And on the way back, he said, "I saw you in the EHB bar, the Edward Herbert building. You know that one. And I saw you in the EHB bar last night, but there were all those weirdo Christians doing questionnaires on people." I said, "Oh, hang on, that was me." And we had an incredible chat. And it turns out that this guy Simon, his dad, had got radically transformed, but Simon hated it. Had gone into a really promiscuous lifestyle, sex, drugs, the occult. He'd been in some really heavy stuff, deeply, deeply into Dungeons and Dragons. And I think at one level, Dungeons and Dragons is all right, but if you go really deep, it's going to be quite dark, as his testimony showed. Because what happened was that the next time, the summertime, he ran up to me. And what was interesting is that his parents had been praying that he'd meet one Christian, one follower of Jesus at Loughborough that he could relate to. But he ran up to me that summer term, and he did not have to say anything. He was, 2 Corinthians 5:17, if anyone's in Christ, they're a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. And he beamed. He wasn't yellow and wan anymore, and he was radically transformed. His story was that on Easter Sunday, his dad, another mate of his, had prayed over him for 5 years as various demons were cast out of his body, and he talked about one of those dragons sort of uncurling from his spine. He could feel it and coming out with a sulphurous burp. It was an amazing story. Anyway, what was beautiful, it was that the next week Adam Groves on the course saw the difference in Simon, said, "I want that." He came to Jesus. The next week, another guy on the course, James Deere, said, "I want that." And there's a little mini move of revival on our course on modern European studies in 1993. So these are memories coming out to me. Basically, you guys, students, it's the best time, isn't it? You've got loads of time on your hands. Well, I did. I had a Mickey Mouse degree, only about 10 hours a week. And loads of time to be out there. You're a rugby league player. You've got all those rugby boys. You're talking about 90-odd coming across those different weeks on your course. Fabulous. We've got to maximise our times, but I don't want people to think, well, I'm not a student, I'm just in the workplace. All of us, you can. It's just praying for opportunities, opening yourself up to opportunities, being bold, stepping out in faith. And let's do it. Before we come to an end, a couple more stories you got to share of encounters?
Well, yeah. I think just just quickly on that, the Fusion Movement UK, they did a recent survey across students across the UK, and 74% of students said that they would go to church if a friend would invite them.
Yeah.
Amazing. And my flatmate, who isn't a Christian, she looked at me and she said, Rob, like, you've got a family at university. I don't have that. I want that. I want to meet the old people. I want to play with the little toddlers running around. And my really encouragement for the church is that students are desiring to be in family. You can have such an amazing influence on a student population because they're looking for that. And a prime example of that is that my friend John. Now, John is in his 70s and he welcomes me at the door every Sunday. And we always talk about, the rugby scores and all of that sort of stuff. And I said, one Sunday, I was like, John, mate, I'm playing on Wednesday. Do you want to come watch the game? He's like, oh, Rob, I'm there. I'll be there. And so John comes and he stands he's there a bit early. Doesn't realise he stood where all the ultras stand, right in the mix where everyone's stand. And he's watching and he's with all the guys. He's singing the songs. And my friends go, who's that guy that you keep on, you've waved to? And when you scored, you went up and said hello to him. It was a good try, by the way, but that's beside the point. Who's that guy? And I was like, oh, it's John from church. And he was like, what? Why has he come to watch us? And I was like, because he's basically like my granddad, because, he welcomes me at church and we talk about rugby and he's invested in me and he knows all of you lot. I've been telling you all about him and he's been praying for you and he's here to support us because he's a wonderful guy. And they're all just like, wow, I don't have that. I want that. Which has led to amazing, beautiful, wonderful conversations and such an encouragement to John as well, because I told John, all of these guys wanting to know more about Jesus because simply you just came to a rugby game and that made his week, month. So that was really cool. And I think sometimes it's those little, we can think that they're mundane, but, the Lord has us right where he wants us. And, a final story to say is my friend in Freshers. I was in the Faulkner Eggington Hall and I had a flatmate who was just like our doors were like right next to each other. And Richard became my friend and we had a pretty tough time coming to university at COVID. And we just did life together and he saw me at my worst. He saw me at my worst. But he also saw me on the mountaintop when I was singing Nathaniel Bassey songs. If you don't know Nathaniel Bassey, you need to listen to Nathaniel Bassey. Singing Nathaniel Bassey songs in the kitchen. He saw both. And he came to this Alpha course I was saying of 90 people. And actually he's really got into community and he's a baker and he's been baking everyone things and it's awesome. And my heart has just been absolutely consumed because my friend Richard, who I live next to, saw the utter rubbishness, a wretch like me, but still saw the beauty of Christ in just the way that I lived. And now he's in community and he knows the King of the universe and he'll be in heaven with us. And it's just so awesome. And he's getting baptized in a couple of weeks. I can't wait for that. I'm going to be a wreck, but it's going to be awesome. But, it's not a story, a crazy story where, there was a word of knowledge. It was literally just doing life with him. And now I would say he's one of my best friends.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but we talk about we can get things the wrong order. We want people to believe, and we expect them to behave, and then they can belong. But actually, often it's the sense that you belong, and then as you feel like you belong and you're welcomed in, then you believe, and then that will lead to the change of behaviour, won't we? And we need to be welcoming and offering this amazing grace to anyone and everyone that God brings across our paths. Listen, are you, you're on campus, you're seeing lots of mates and random people coming to know Jesus, and a lot of people in this country on the back foot, they're not confident in the gospel, but you are confident in the gospel because you've seen the power of God for salvation. You know that's the truth. Are you encouraged for the state of the nation, or are you optimistic as we move forward? Do you think there's hope for this nation?
I think there's hope for this nation, definitely. I think what we've seen in Loughborough has been happening across the whole UK. I've got friends in Bath University who are telling me stories, and so much so that they've been so overwhelmed with people coming that they've started praying every morning. at 6:30 in the morning. Now they're crazy,
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning, but they're praying every day for the people that they're interacting with. It's happening in Durham. Their carol service they had, I think it was around 1,600 people came to the carol service. They had to ticket it. They had to ticket a carol service because it was exploding. And I really do believe, as I said, that 74% of students that would want to come to church, there's a real opportunity for the gospel in this new next generation. Now, the warning is that there's this openness to the church, this openness to Jesus, but there's this also openness to the new age and to witchcraft and to the spiritual realm. And what is the call, I think, for the church is that we should be excited because there's the embers of revival are glowing, but we also need to be active, because if we're not active, we will lose them to the enemy, and we don't want that in the slightest. But I am encouraged because there is a whole new wave of evangelists moving across the UK. And if you're an evangelist yourself, I would really encourage you to seek your university, find your evangelists and train them up, disciple them. I've been, when we went to that evangelist conference, Simon, I met so many amazing evangelists who are now going to be investing in me, which has been awesome. And so, yeah, just encourage you. You probably already are. But if you haven't got someone that you're discipling, please do it, because we need that wisdom that will be imparted and passed on to us.
Rob Colwell, we're cheering you on, buddy, and we pray that there'll be multiple Robs and Robertas across the nation, across the nations. In Burundi, we back the equivalent movement through 28 different campuses out there, and loads are coming to Jesus. I mean, goodness, the student African scene is exploding, and revival is not a word that's lightly used there. There's so many are coming to faith. It's absolutely wonderful. But we want to see the Western world, it's the new generation coming through. They're going to be the movers and the shakers, going to the arts, media, politics, education, shaping and shaking society. That's what we want to see. You're going to be part of it. It's going to be said of you, Rob. He, like David, achieved the purposes of God in his generation. I want to speak that over you and your cohort. And we believe in you and we cheer you on. And listen, I'm going to put your email in the blurb. I'm sure you're right with that, so that people can be in touch with you to be encouraged. We cheer on Fusion. We cheer on UCCF, different approaches, whatever. We're just believing, all those different ministries that are reaching out to students. So thanks, mate, for your time, and keep firing.
Fired up, ready to go. Here we go.
Brilliant. That's a bit of a private joke for us, but we are. That's a fired up, ready to go. Bring it on. All right, mate. God bless you.
Thank you.
Listen, everybody, I trust you've been started. It's so nice, isn't it? It's a different voice. It's a younger voice, and I think often we're down on the youth, and I mean, there's a lot to be depressed about, but yeah, there's a whole generation of people who are absolutely on fire for Jesus, and so I'm encouraged and stirred to hear those stories that are happening today in a new generation. So if you've been inspired, please give us a great review on Spotify or iTunes. If you want to get in touch with me, it's simongilbo.com. I want to thank Adam Thomas Steer for the editing, Mike Sandyman for the mixing. Next week, we've got another fantastic guest again that will stir your cockles. In the meantime, have a great week. God bless you, and toodaloo.